the General, Douglas B. Moylan, presenting today.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. You know, in the other outreaches we've had, it's been more of this kind of holding people's hands, talking to them gently. You guys are the converted already. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're asking to become the tip of the spear for the local law enforcement for this community, and the fact that you've asked me to address 4 different questions that are right on point with what you're going to be asked to do by June. This is a class of, what, 10 people?
Sir, yes, sir.
Excellent. I like that. Sir, yes, sir. Very military. You guys recognize that the local law enforcers, just the 2 words, law enforcers, says it all. When you're a law enforcer, you need to push your will on the individuals that you're going to be encountering in your careers. And that enforcement comes from our 3 branches of government, our system of the legislative branch, which is creating those laws which you're going to be asked to enforce, working very closely with the attorneys at the Attorney General's office on Guam. In the states, they call them district attorneys and county attorneys in most states, but it's the criminal law enforcement function is what you're primarily going to be asked to be doing. We have criminal statutes, as you know, and then we have civil statutes, right? So the first thing that I've been asked to address is who is the Attorney General on Guam and what is the purpose of the Attorney General? 48 United States Code, sections 1421 GD1. Does anyone know what code that thing is? Is this local law or federal law? Please raise your hands. Does anyone know this code section that I just put up here? 48 USC section 1421 GD1. In our system of government, we have local laws and then we have the federal law. That is a federal law. So the Attorney General is an officer of the Congress's creation of the Attorney General. And that happened in about 1998 when the Congressman Underwood at the time talked to the congressional people at the House of Representatives to say that we want an Attorney General that's above the local laws and is in the federal statutes. They call that the supremacy clause, as you guys know from social studies, right? Federal law in our government prevails over local laws, okay? And every state in Guam takes the character of a territory which is like below the federal law. So the Attorney General, according to Congress, is, and this is the operative word, Chief Legal Officer of the Government of Guam. But that's an overall umbrella for civil matters. But in the statutes, it also says, and this is the federal statutes, that until the legislature decides otherwise, the Attorney General is also the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for all criminal laws. So you guys, again, are in that criminal realm. You are creating the investigations, the case files, the reports that will eventually be submitted to the Attorney General and my prosecutors for review. On Guam, the Attorney General obviously is elected, and the first election was in 2002. I was humbled enough that your parents voted me into office 20 years ago. We were the tip of the spear. We continue to be the tip of the spear because my client is all of you and our villagers out there that you guys are going to be asked to help me with making sure that we all follow the law. Okay, you guys ever see Judge Dredd when Sylvester Stallone says, "I am the law"? So that is basically what you guys are doing. You're going out into the village communities and you're trying to enforce our laws. But obviously, as police officers, you create the communication, you create the rapport, you try to urge people not to do things or to do things. And obviously, that is my best preference too. But we know that when you're in a law enforcement position, sometimes people don't get it and they need to be locked up. They need to be taken under control. And what is the end result of what you're doing? And by the way, this is very interactive, okay? So you guys contribute, talk, ask questions. Let me know what's concerning you. The key thing that you guys are going to be doing is you're the interface. My prosecutors don't get out into the community. well, we do the outreaches, that sort of thing, but we don't see the ground zero stuff that you guys are going to be seeing when somebody's calling up at 2 o'clock in the morning and saying that my husband is about ready to kill me, help me. That is what they call it, first responder type of situations that you guys are going to be asked. Go, no go, shoot, don't shoot, arrest, don't arrest, things like that. I can tell you right now that ever since I was the first elected AG, I don't let my prosecutors take those 24/7 calls. I take those calls from the precincts, from the officers themselves, because when that report comes to my office, my prosecutors have to show by charging or not charging or investigating cases what the people's elected attorney general wants to be the legal policy of the office. At the end of the day, pain and suffering of the victims is what you guys are all about. Stopping the suffering that occurs from people that break the laws. And as you guys know, sometimes it's a personal pain and suffering that people are going through, like the family violence situation. Sometimes they call them victimless crimes, but because they're breaking the law, we're all victims, okay? And some of those categories they talk about is like prostitution. You got a willing customer, right, and a willing prostitute. There's no real victim there, but it's against the law. So the people of Guam, through the legislature, have said that that is a crime that is a violation of criminal law, and it hurts the public because we don't want people doing that in our jurisdiction. Okay, so Chief Legal Officer and Chief Law Enforcement Officer, for your guys' purposes, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer is where I want to kind of direct this conversation we're having. What is the Attorney General's perspective on the value of government service? Well, I'm living it today because I literally have to go through a contest every 4 years and ask for your votes, ask for the villagers' votes, ask for people's vote of confidence that I can do the best job for them compared to whoever else runs for this position. Again, I've been honored twice for 8 years, going on 8 years now, to be a public servant. People lose sensitivity on what a public servant truly is. A public servant isn't a person that's riding an SUV and having a whole bunch of people around them to protect them. A public servant is a person that's willing to get out of their high horse and come down and help we in the community, to roll up their sleeves and to help us so that, what is it that we want to have? Your families, your children, your wives, your sisters, your brothers. We want a good quality of life. And that is the primary goal of a public servant. Each one of you are engaging and becoming, can you close that door, please? Are engaging in a life of public service. You don't have to be elected to be a public servant. What they normally say for a public servant is that you go out and you work for the government or a non-profit organization, something greater than you, right? That's what you guys are going out there to try to exude, something greater than yourself, to improve our quality of life, to make our lives better, right? All your heads should be, and by the way, I don't care about yes sir, no sir, salute, whatever. This is a one-on-one conversation that I'm having to you as your colleague, attorney that will be working with you as you guys graduate and get your badges, okay? The Attorney General, like you guys, by the Guam Legislature, is a peace officer, and every prosecutor in my office is considered a peace officer, which means that we can carry a firearm, we can do everything that the police can do arrests, things like that, okay? So we're all in the same group. And that's why you guys need to ask questions, because when you guys arrest, the first thing that's going to happen is how long are we going to keep that person in prison? And as U.S. citizens, we have a right to be brought before a judge within 48 hours to know the charges against us. You guys start the process off by writing up the charges, and then the Attorney General's office daily looks at those charges, looks at the police reports that you put together, and then decides, okay, there was a family violence that occurred here. We have enough information. Let's take it to the judge and see if the judge agrees with us. The Attorney General isn't the one that causes the case to be accepted. It's the judges through the magistrate process and the grand juries. The system is always cleaned by every one of you, your relatives, your neighbors, because they go onto a grand jury panel and then they raise their hand if they think that the facts, sufficient probable cause exists to charge this crime, right? Reason to believe that a crime was committed and this person committed the crime, PC, right? That is the analysis that you guys always have to think about. And putting that into a report is critical, okay, for us. Because within that, usually a 4-hour period in which we have to charge it and bring it to the court, that's the reality of what we're dealing with in the AG's office. We look at your police reports. Worst case scenario, sometimes when it isn't finished, we actually talk to you guys in the field. My prosecutors will say, what happened out there? And then they put the APC, affidavit of probable cause, put the charges, give it to the judge, and the judge sometimes agrees, doesn't agree. And then the next process for the felonies, it goes to a grand jury, right? So you have safety valves in every part of the system. And you guys are the first safety valves because you go out in the field and you talk to people. You create the relationship. So public service deals with that type of analysis. The value of government service is often lost by bureaucracy. I hate bureaucracy. I hate the fact that we are getting old as government officials are not knowing what they're doing or not bringing us that instant better quality of life, okay? You guys are part of the system. You guys actually create an instant better quality of life because you take a criminal out of the village and put him behind bars. And again, I'm not into punishment. I'm into deterrence, and I'm into protecting all of you, your families, my client, because I'm an attorney and I have to have a client. All of you who voted me into office, I need to improve your quality of life and I need to protect you. But what is Maslov's? Does anybody know what Maslov's hierarchy of needs are? Safety, food, shelter, those are the top, right? So without that, you basically are going to be living like a barbarian or not living at all. You guys are dealing with safety. And you guys know, and especially to digress here, one of the worst cases, one of the worst calls you're going to get is a family violence call or pulling over a car in the middle of the night, because that's when you guys get shot, is that when you're coming up. I don't know if you guys have been watching the news lately, but there's usually some guy in the house waiting for the cop to come over, and the moment they get close to the house, they start shooting at him. You guys ever see that in the news? Those are usually family violence cases because that personal relationship sometimes has consequences that they can't deal with because their lives are falling apart. You know, they're feeling emotional and stuff like that. So that's the type of public service that you guys have are heading towards and will be sworn into. Very dangerous, has all that type of life and death associated with it. And I'm going to go through these 4 very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. So I need you guys to make this purposeful and to ask me questions, okay? So the third one you guys asked me to address is, what are the Attorney General's insights on how students can contribute positively to our community? Okay, well, let's just talk about, you guys are students right now. You guys are contributing positively because you're learning the rules in order to keep us safe and to maintain and improve our good quality of life. Okay? Anyone know what the 2 biggest problems Guam is having from a law enforcement criminal perspective right now?
I think I know one. Meth.
Correct?
Maybe family violence or something?
That's included within it. Yes.
Sorry, I was going to say the same answers.
Okay. So
What was this?
all of these are thank you. I want to say cadet, but you're a trainee?
Sir. Police officer training.
Police officer trainee, POT.
Seriously.
Thompson, right?
Seriously.
I'm sorry?
Seriously. Thompson, sir.
Thompson, yes. So you can be seated. So yes, the 2 things are definitely meth, but you see what meth is doing, deteriorating the people and are deteriorating us and then putting us into homelessness, putting us into the family violence situations. We're seeing it, even in government officials, by the way, where they're getting their wives calling up and saying that my husband is on meth and he's head of a department. It knows no gender, race, financial status. Meth will destroy you. You guys know that. But you don't see what we see in the AG's office. And the second one, meth and repeat criminals. Okay? Those are the 2 greatest problems that you're going to be facing out there when you become cadets. When you get that phone call that you're supposed to respond to an incident, and if you have the luxury of running that name, And that's why the calls I get 24/7, 2 o'clock in the morning, the first thing I ask you guys, the officers, are, what's their priors? That says a lot about somebody. And I don't care if they're convicted, if they've been involved with the law, that's the first indicator. Theft. A lot of those thefts you're seeing that are going on out there, they're meth addicts. They're stealing because they are addicted mentally to the drug meth. Okay? That begins the deterioration. Any meth addict that thinks that they can beat it is stupid. You'll never be able to beat meth because it transforms the brain. It's a synthetic drug created by the Germans in which war? Sir. Correct. Which battle was it used in? Battle of the Bulge. Right. Right, it was the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans created it in order to create the super soldier. Okay? So they had a good intent, which was to, you can be seated, to win their battle, but they realized that the drug they created was creating zombies. They were very powerful. You need it. And that's what we're experiencing on Guam and throughout the entire United States, is that once a meth addict, you're basically digging your grave, but they're going to take somebody down with them. And that's what we're seeing in our community. I think in 2024, or 2025, no, 2024, most of those 7 or 8 deaths that occurred there were all meth related. Okay? You got the meth addicts preying on meth addicts. You've got the meth dealers shooting one another. And the worst thing for a meth dealer to do is take his own drug. But this is the stuff we're trying to educate our kids, educate the community. It's not about getting put in handcuffs that you guys are going to be doing with the meth addicts. Just tell them you're going to end up dead. You know? That is literally what we're seeing, is that they end up dead. Either that, if you're lucky enough to even try to get out of it, your heart's going to be for shit, which means that by the time that you maybe live to 80 years old, you'll be dying at 60. And that came from Dr. Nine. The autopsies that he was doing, I think it was 2024. I think it's at 18%. Guam had such a high number of meth deaths, related deaths, when he was doing autopsies. Overdoses, stuff like that. Okay, so the public service, this idea of students contributing positively to the community. The other aspect of it, I'm a strong believer, and you guys aren't that far away from high school, most of you as I look at you. I'm a strong believer in you need to change our next generation and to educate them. Educate them with their minds, educate them with the positives and negatives of what they can do to change their lives and to make their lives successful. We are at such a low level in this community having to fight off meth addicts, meth dealers, and talk about that, when we should be like Taiwan, Japan, Singapore, these island nations, islands like us, that have become super industrial powers in the world today, because they discipline their children. And what is it? They educate. When you educate, and even our own U.S. statistics show, the more educated you are, the less likely you're going to fall into taking drugs. Because with education comes financial prosperity. It begins the cycle when you don't have the money. You're more prone to take substances because you don't realize he had his business, and in the evenings he would get in his car and go to the Agana precinct, put on his uniform, and he would patrol the highways, the villages, and so forth. And I would always smile because I look back at his stories of maybe the 60s and the 70s, and I look at today, where you get all these legislations that talk about this perfect world and what it is to be like. He would pull over people in their villages that were drunk, car was driving, and he would know them because he knew these people in the villages. He literally would just take their keys and just say, sleep it off, and then take it to the precinct. Didn't arrest, he just let them realize this time you're getting off easy. That is the type of stuff that you guys are going to be asked to do in the connection with the community. But in 2022, my comments publicly were, I would like to see police officers in your police cars in the villages. And also, where are those motorcycles? Those motorcycles, you can hear them in the house, especially the Harleys or whatever the Japanese ones are. People that follow the law respect you guys, and people that don't follow the law fear you. Police, and my grandfather was very big on that. In the villages, the police have to be in the villages because that's how you get those meth addicts from creating their nests and then breaking apart. You break them up, you keep them on the run. Those are the things that you're going to have to talk about within your own command in terms of talking to the chiefs and saying, can I get out there on the streets? I know that you guys are overloaded. We're overloaded at the AG's office. But the deterrent effect that occurs stops the crime. What is it? What's his name? Top Gun guy. Tom Cruise. You guys ever watch that flick that he did? It was a Steven Spielberg one on the future crime sort of thing. Which one? Minority Report. Got a movie buff here. They're doing a remake, I think. There's a remake on that right now. The idea was to stop crime before it occurs. That's what that word deterrence is all about. You don't want people to commit a crime because you're in the punishment mode, the law enforcement mode, and it's cheaper for everybody when we have a good law-abiding community. That's why I allude to, look at Singapore. I think they just executed an American about within the past 5 years, was found with marijuana, was convicted of drug dealing. They don't tolerate it in Singapore. And they executed the U.S. citizen, that's my understanding. That's the deterrence and that's the discipline that you guys, all this stuff is what you're sitting and training with your courses right now. Using all the tools, understanding the system, getting uploaded on what is the Fourth Amendment, what are the laws dealing with what you're doing on the streets, and how to make the best decisions when you're out there. But education is part of the deterrence because it stops people and educates them to know that this drug is going to kill you eventually. Not a matter of you're going to go to DOC and you're going to embarrass your parents. It's going to kill you, you know? And that's why those photos over there, and it starts with each organ beginning to shut down, and visually your teeth start falling out, and your heart eventually is going to give in. The last one, and it's all tied together, is these damn billboards. I've taken shit from this community about my billboards, but anyone that has a brain on their head understands that those billboards are important because it sends a legal message out from a bunch of lawyers that were hired by everybody in our community to understand what we're facing in the AG's office, save you money as taxpayers, because if our community follows the law, understands what we're trying to say, your lives should be better, okay? This is a messaging platform. And then just realize the fact that an attorney, like you guys have attorneys, you guys have doctors, the idea is there's a relationship. It's a professional relationship that you have to be licensed for that basically says, as the attorney, my client needs to understand these things, not only to protect themselves and by the enforcement of the law, but by deterring future crimes, by deterring you from committing a crime. And what the hell am I hearing at the AG's office from the prisoners? I don't want to end up in a billboard. You know, that's what the defense attorneys are telling the prosecutors, that their client is worried about ending up in a billboard. That is same high school principles. People don't want to be embarrassed, right? Normally. And what is the greatest embarrassment? When you're at a fiesta or a family rosary or a party and grandma is looking at you and says, come over here, and what is it when they twist your ear? Yeah, that's worse than getting 5 years in jail. When your grandmother or your grandfather basically shows you in front of your entire family that you've embarrassed us. The Salas name, the Moylan name, the Cruz name. We as law enforcers, anything and everything to stop the crime. And if we have to punish people, it's not who you're punishing, it's who you're saving. That life that you save. That idea that you take that meth addict out of the village, you put him in prison, you keep him in prison, because if you let him out, somebody's going to get killed. Taitigui, right? I woke up in the morning and I was being sent these viral videos of this body laying in the middle of the road. Literally within, I think, an hour or 2 hours, somebody videoed that guy that got shot in the head, right? That's what you're going to be dealing with, and it's all meth related. The police report shows that he was hanging out at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, meth addict related issues, and then the person that shot him, meth addict related issues, meth on meth crimes. And the inhumanity to shoot somebody in the head, I think it was twice, and then dump the body in the middle of the road. That's the type of stuff that you guys are going to be seeing. And that's just the murder part of it. The rape part of it, the incest that you're going to be seeing, it's going to make you sick, you know. So like social workers, you guys got to be careful because what you see, you have to protect yourselves that your family's not going to fall apart and that it's not going to affect your lives. That's being humans. What we see, we internalize. The stress, the exposure to things. That's why in the military and in the police, you have high incidences of suicides because of what you're seeing, what you're being asked as a matter of public service, right? You're asked to be at ground zero. You're asked to see things, you know, and that's why, like Desert Storm, a lot of those guys came back broken. PTSD was a result of the wars in Asia, right? PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That was associated with those people that grew up in nice families like we did, and they're going to be asked to go kill people in a foreign nation. You can't ask people to do that, which is the inhumanity. I don't care if you were in the right when you killed somebody. When you see death, it changes you. And when you're a part of that death, when you guys have to use that firearm, it will change you. So all these things is what we're talking about here today, okay? You guys need to raise your hand because I'm doing an overview here. What is it that concerns you as future police officers? I'll tell you from my perspective, this community needs to elect the right Attorney General. And I haven't announced that I'm running for politics or not. I'm not even sure if I'm going to. I'm at a point in my life that, you know, I have a better life in private practice, more money, and especially on Guam, there's not enough lawyers, so the prices are going up and what they're paying for lawyers and stuff like that. But when you talk about public service, you know, there is a gratitude that comes just being here today and talking to you. You know, this is not what a private attorney does. Has one-on-one client relationships, gets money from the transaction, goes into court, hired gun, right? But an attorney general is a hired gun for you guys, all of you. So when we do things, we try to look at the bigger perspective. But at the end of the day, and you don't hear those politicians talking about it, it's the quality of life and how good what we're doing is translating into your lives. And that's why I say we should be looking at bringing in major industry into Guam so that we bring in the money, our quality of life goes up because the salaries go up, the prosperity comes in. We're still at such a low value. I still remember the 70s when I was growing up. Guam hasn't changed. You know, we haven't broken the envelope to become like Taiwan, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong. They were a small group of people on an island that disciplined themselves through education, and they made the right decisions to bring in the money, which is the resources, which is a better quality of life. When we're talking about this BS, you're at the lowest of the low. You know, when you're seeing dead bodies on the road, you know, that's just, but they need you. They need an attorney general that identifies it and works the problem. That's what an attorney is all about. We're trained to understand the system. We're like an operating system, bunch of lawyers going out there. We're technicians of the government. That's why the best governments, the United States, Washington, D.C., all those guys in Congress, they're all lawyers. Who's one of the richest guys on this planet?
Elon Musk, sir?
Elon Musk, but also Jeff Bezos, lawyer. Ukraine, Zelensky, lawyer. Putin, lawyer. So you guys are part of the legal system, and it's the lawyers that you guys are supporting. And maybe some of you want to be lawyers, and I've heard of police officers becoming lawyers. It's understanding the system, being trained for it, passing the bar, getting that license, and then helping our quality of life. Our purpose here is not to be a minion. Our purpose here is to improve our villagers' quality of life. That's why I talk about officers need to get into the community, need to go visit those people like my grandfather did. He knew the names of those people that he was pulling over. He knew their background. And that's why when you make those decisions in the field, arrest, don't arrest, is this a situation? And I'm that type of person. Recommendation. When you're in the villages, when you're in the community, you know this person's worth a second chance because we all want it, right? I'm not perfect. I got my ass pulled over by the cops when I was in high school and so forth. What was the first thing that the cops would tell me back then? 1980s era? What's your name? Doug Moylan. I know your grandfather. You better slow down. Okay, thanks. You know, that is policing. That is understanding where the danger is by giving somebody a warning or not giving them a warning. And then your input, and more serious crimes are very important. You look at their background. You look at what your recommendations are to my prosecutors, to the Attorney General, is valuable because that goes to the quality of life. If you guys ever see Les Miserables, the movie? You should watch it. The one with Liam Neeson is the best. That one was a person who was a convict, right? And Nicole, what was the name of the inspector? Javier? Javier. See? Javier was the hard-ass police officer that just wanted to take this guy down because he found out that he had changed his identity and that he was elected the mayor of that French village and stuff. But Javier was convicted for having stolen bread. I'm sorry, the guy that played the main, who's the main actor? The one that played the main actor on it. He was the convicted felon and was turning his life around. That second chance, what I'm talking about. If you see something where a person is worthy of a second chance, especially we see in the juvenile area, but even the adult area, your contributions to the Attorney General's office, you're speaking with them before they're going to trial. I'm listening to all those things. And we have I call it a product. We have a program that we're about ready to come out with called, it's going to be a repent. It's the penance type of program that I want to know who are those individuals that deserve a second chance and the ability to give them that opportunity. And I'm talking about adults. But I can tell you right now, those people on meth have a low chance of being given a second chance because they're actually, what you see from the consumption and the destruction that this drug causes, it's just, would you release a meth addict that, had you seen the future crime, would kill somebody? That one chance you gave to somebody that ends up destroying somebody else's life? That is what all of us in this criminal justice system are having to weigh, life and death. Literally, life and death situations. What do you do? Go, no go, shoot, don't shoot, those sorts of things. Okay? Questions? This is a good thing. Become a superhero. You guys like DC Comics or Marvel? Who likes Marvel?
Sir, I have a question. Sir, can you talk about the GDOE policy requiring mandatory police contact for students that found in possession of vapes?
Excellent. So our socials say that vape is a big problem with the kids, right? I didn't realize how bad it was because in my age, you'd be like in the principal's office and there's a private school, and the worst thing that you'd worry about is talking to your parents after. Vape is illegal. It's illegal under the statute. So when you're dealing with the kids, what do I think about the policy? About time. It's about time that we start bringing back those values that I was taught when I was younger. You feared your parent more than you feared the teacher. and you feared the teacher because the teacher was going to turn you in to your parent. And when you got home, your parent was going to beat the shit out of you. I'm going to get the social workers be going on my little socials. They're telling me about that. First thing I did in 2023 when I took office, one of the first things is I wrote a nice little 1-page or 2-page letter to the chief of police and said, by the way, when a parent is accused of assault on their child, we have this nice statute in the law passed by the legislature that says that it is not assault when a parent or a guardian in the process of disciplining uses corporal punishment. Okay? So along your question, how do you bring back discipline where the kids are scared of the teachers and the parents? Is you do things like that. You send out a memo wide to all the teachers at DOE that this police and these kids are going to be taken to the JIS unit and then are going to be sent over to the AG's office. What we do with them is a question. We look at their priors. We see if the parent is going to give them the proper disciplining and so forth. But the bottom, and sometimes these kids that are doing that are usually involved in other things, right?
Yes.
So that's all what you guys are going to be doing. You're looking at their priors when you're doing those police reports. You're going to put their rap sheet in it, arrest, conviction, whatever. For the kids, it'll probably be some sort of a went through family court, has a family court case. And you guys know it's not even as simple as that. Some of these kids, they're broken because their parents are broken. And because their parents are on meth, substance abuse, cocaine, alcohol, you name it. A lot of our kids in our schools are suffering because their family unit is falling apart. And what's underlying this, and when I say going out to the villages, meeting the families, understanding who are the problem people and not the problem people, the breaking up of the family unit, and the Catholics and the churches are always talking about that, is the first sign of the disintegration of society. When people aren't marrying, when they're just having kids on the side, and the kids are growing up without a father figure and without a mother figure, society begins to fall apart. Because the values that I was brought up in, and many of you were brought up in, and every culture, it's not the Chamorro culture, it's not the Caucasian culture, it's not the Micronesian culture, it's not the Japanese or Asian. Every culture has a fundamental desire to keep the families together. Religion is normally the ones that do it. When people go to church and they get the education and their belief systems and so forth. And the legislature is the output of that, right? The legislature, because of everybody going and becoming senators, they pass laws that are consistent with their moral beliefs. They need more of that. And what we need to do is we need to also, and I got to get this program off because I talked about it 3 years ago, we need to take those kids and have them wash their police cars. We need to use the deterrence. We need to use the public embarrassment to change behavior. For those kids' purposes, I'd rather see one of those juveniles given a scrub brush, a soap pail, and be washing the cars as the school bell rings and all the kids are going by them and going on their buses, because that's deterrence. You think that kid's going to do that again when everybody's laughing at him, that they're washing the cop car or the AG's car or some law enforcement, the ambulances? That's the type of creative thinking that you guys can be a part of. That's why I'm saying when you guys get out to the villages, another one, 2022, walk the school grounds with your officer uniforms, and don't go in undercover. You go with your firearm on the side, the handcuffs, the police, and I think I remember that in our Catholic school. But I mean, the presence of police officers, those that respect the police officers are usually the law-abiding ones. Those that are fearing or scrambling or social media, hey, shit, they're here, worried that they're going to be caught by the dogs coming through the school. Those are the ones you need to go after. Keep the criminals running. Keep the criminals in fear. Okay? So, yeah, they need to do more of that. The superintendent and the teachers. And the attorneys are there to protect the teachers, to let them know. That's why I sent that letter out to all you guys. The parents, when you guys are investigating a parent because their daughter has slap marks all over her face, and then the mother tells you that I beat the shit out of her because I told her to stop seeing that boy. She's 16 years old and she's going to get pregnant. You know, it's like one of those things. You think I'm going to get a conviction before a jury that the mother beat the 16-year-old girl up because she's fornicating with her boyfriend, that sort of thing? No. That's the common sense that you guys also have to understand. There's a right, there's a wrong, but can you, at the end of the day, all you guys are there, it has to be proven before a jury. You do not get a conviction or a righteous arrest that ends up in a conviction unless the jury decides. And who's the jury? Each one of you. Okay? Other questions?
Sir, so one of the biggest issues or topics we have right now relating to our community is a new hospital. So what's your take on that?
Have a seat. So, okay. 20 years ago, I unfortunately got into a fight with the governor over the bond borrowing. It went up to the U.S. Supreme Court. I didn't like it, but that's the decisions that an attorney general has to make, and it all goes back to money. Okay? 20 years ago, it was about borrowing more than our community could pay back. In the Organic Act, the federal statute, like that created my position in 1998, was the same issue that was going back then. How much money can Guam borrow? That was the fight 20 years ago. What's the fight this term? Hospital. Do you guys know the facts of that hospital? Remember COVID, billions of dollars given out to all these jurisdictions. Guam was one of the beneficiaries of it. What we have left is about 105 million. So in 2024, December 31, 2024 was the cutoff. How could we use that 105 million? Congress said that if you're going to use the COVID money, you follow the local laws. Governor wanted to put 105 million into her dream hospital. Okay? Whether she wants to do that or not was a decision of the governor, the legislature, and these other elected offices. But you must follow the law. And what is the Attorney General's office? We have to make sure that you spent it properly. One of the biggest problems with this, that's how much money she had for the feds. That's how much money you need to build her dream hospital, her dream medical facility. Where is the legislature, ladies and gentlemen? You guys have money to pay that? You guys, we're nowhere close. Look at our current hospital. How much money are we having to dish out in taxes and everything just to keep that current GMH running? It's not making money. It's losing money big time. It's bleeding money. It's always been bleeding money. The legislature and the senators that you elect, this is Civics 101, right? Social Studies Civics 101. The legislature appropriates and the executive enforces, creates the direction to a certain extent. She's only got 105 million. And she didn't follow the law. She didn't even get the Attorney General's signature. And how did she get around it? She went to GURA. And what did Judge Iriarte say? GURA can't be building hospitals because they had no redevelopment going on. So it was a harebrained scheme that was started. And by the way, the governor's my aunt, distant aunt. So the idea is you don't have the money to finance this thing, and you're building just infrastructure is where they're ending up with it now. And the legislature says we don't have the money. Public safety, healthcare, and education, the three biggest parts of every government and our government. We don't have 1.5 billion. We only throw 105 million into that infrastructure, and it's going to take 10 years, and they don't even have the plans for it. This is why I call it harebrained. And they didn't ask the most important people to incur that debt, which is our senators. The legislative branch is the power of the purse and decides what debt we are to incur. You guys, you know that ever since I took office, the prison has become overcrowded. GPD and the Attorney General's office have worked together to ensure that this community is safe, and the judges got the message and have been putting people at DOC. Okay? And in part, it's because of the damn billboards. We put a face up there of a convicted felon, a convicted convicted of misdemeanors. It gets change and it sends messages out. but we're in the process of showing people bad act, bad consequences. So the bottom line with the hospital, it didn't follow the law, and this is the civil side of the Attorney General, Chief Legal Officer of the government. We are a check and balance like the public auditor. By the way, when that law was passed in 1998, guess what was the other position in the government that Congress said you must have? It was B.J. Cruz's position, the public auditor. Those are watchdog departments. The public auditor and the Attorney General, they protect your money so that you guys aren't paying $1,000 just to register your car. That's what happens when you overspend, when you misspend. The debt consumes us. And then we as a people, our quality of life goes down because what Saipan a few years ago, they couldn't pay for their power. They were load shedding, shutting the generators down. I remember a time that was in the news. That's what happens with our quality of life. It deteriorates. You guys think that you're going to have enough police vehicles, ambulances, stuff like that? When you can't pay the debt, they start taking things away. It's no different in the government. We can delay it, but eventually they're going to take it away. Okay? So, yeah, it's unfortunately, and I warned the governor in December 2024 that we needed to sit down and talk about how she was going to use that, and she refused. So what's the consequence? December 31, 2024 came by. She locked it in. Can't do anything about it. Senators got to go to Congress and ask them to let us use it again. So, unfortunate. I, of all people, want $105 million to be used for this community because the prison, we need to build a bigger prison. And ladies and gentlemen, understand, I literally had certain government officials who I will not name, but I had even the governor of Guam send me, and this is like 3 attempts, let's let people out because our prison is overcrowded. Do you realize how scary that is from your perspective? That the people that you just arrested last night, the government officials who weren't there at the arrest and saw that woman screaming with all the blood all over her, you know how dangerous that is for a politician to say, we have a problem because we can't build a bigger prison because we have no money, because all our money went to that hospital, and then say, let's just let them out? It's scary because that person you just let out is probably a meth addict and is probably going to be in your backyard trying to get into your house in order to take what you got and probably has a gun. That is the most scary things that I'm seeing in the newspaper. For all these pullovers, and the police officers, the chief is doing an excellent job. All those pullovers, and I can just imagine what's going on. First they see the car swerving, and then they get on their computer and identify that car being not registered, not even identified as stolen, but not that person's car, and then you get the name of that person and run it down and all the arrests that are coming up. What do they have with them? Usually on that meth that nobody owns in the car, and I find it funny that the judges are letting it out when everybody says it's not mine. Or what is the other funny one? When they see Officer Iriarte, they already got his name pegged, and they says, is Draco? Is it Draco, right? Is Draco around? You know, that's how the police reports are coming out. But that's because they're on meth and they can't even think right. That's the insanity that you guys are going to be dealing with. But the dangerous thing that you're going to be facing, they've got a gun in that car. Okay? That's the scary thing. They've got an unregistered firearm in that vehicle, and you're either stopping them on their way to rob somebody, or you're stopping them and are in danger of getting shot. That's how crazy these guys are. One of my guys literally went by the Dededo billboard and saw a woman that took off the QR code that was here. She just kind of ripped it off, and he's calling me up. And I'm just kind of, and he says, do you want me to call the cops to have her arrested? And I says, no, just get the thing back and we can put it back. But what she started doing is she started dancing in front of him. She's on drugs. By the time the cop came there, she was in the middle of, right next to the Dededo overpass, walking towards the airport, the middle of the road, dancing with all the cars going around her. That's the stuff that you guys are going to see as police officers and first responders. Nothing has changed. The meth epidemic is here on Guam, okay? Governor refuses to check every container that's out there. The reason why that's important, we reduce the amount of drugs in Guam's community, what happens? Simple economics. They can't get away from it. Price goes up. Once the price goes up, the Micronesian community, which was mostly dealing with alcohol in the past, like the American Indian, so cheap you could either buy a 6-pack of beer or I think it was 5 tokes of meth. That was the problem. But fine, drink all you want. That has its own known, you can get out of alcohol. Once they get addicted to meth, and that's why I say every weekend, the number of meth addicts that are being created because the price is too low, and then fixing those guys becomes a almost impossibility. Once they're addicted to that, the brain is addicted like a rat to that drug, we've got a problem. You got to house them. Then they become a whole bane on society. They become mentally ill. They can't get a job. They're now a convicted felon. Nobody wants to hire them. You know, it's a cycle, and it's like a snowball. So what do I do on triage? We drive the price up because we don't let that it's coming through the port and the ocean, by the way. That's why the National Guard's important. And the military, they know every ship that's around Guam. The Chinese, we saw the Chinese coming in, right, from Saipan. Meth is getting into Guam, and it's not over the airplanes. The majority of meth coming in is through the port or the ocean. And we've just Pirates Cove, about a year ago, right? I get a call, I think it was a Saturday. He says that they just found a bunch of white packages that washed up on the shore at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Cops were down there already and everything. That's what you guys are going to be facing. So drive the price of meth up, get people to shift away. I'm not saying you're not going to fix certain people, okay? I'm not a dreamer that I think that I can make society utopian. But you reduce the numbers that are addicted to this drug, make them alcoholics. If you want to destroy your life, become an alcoholic. Or take a drug that is grown. Cocaine you can deal with. The synthetic drug of ice you can't. The Germans did. The Germans are the best people in the world for creating ingenuity. Science, medicine, drugs. They created the ultimate drug. And I think it was Pervitin. They would call it Pervitin in the 1930s. The idea is, as an attorney general, find ways to make your lives easier. Focus upon money. It's always about the money. Shift them out of it. We can manage the other drugs. You can't manage cocaine, or I'm sorry, meth. Other questions?
Question.
Yes.
Are there police officers who are involved in drug dealing corruption? If so,
My grandfather told me 20 years ago, watch the cops, because he was a police officer himself. There's nothing worse than a bad cop, okay? First of all, one of the principles that I understand is don't underpay the cops. Don't, and this is from a legislature perspective, you need to be comfortable and happy with the salaries that you have, okay? How you get bad cops, one of the ways that you get bad cops is they're not paid enough. So they take money under the table, and that starts the corruption from your guys' perspective. From a management perspective, the worst things that you can have are police officers or staff that have bad attitudes and that are bad people. I'll tell you at the AG's office, I've run out a lot of people in that Attorney General's office because I did not see them as the crime fighters that we need to help you guys and put those guys behind bars. You cannot be a person that wants to retire in the police department or in the Attorney General's office. You guys need to be the tip of the spear, the crime fighters, the people that are willing to go the extra yard to get our community into a better place for all of us. That's why I was joking before, who likes Marvel and who likes DC Comics? Are you guys Marvel people or DC Comics? Marvel, yeah, Marvel. It's the whole, it's not the Avengers, the super, what's it called for the DC Comics? It's Justice League. So you got the Avengers versus Justice League. That is what we want in our community. You want that grandma on the side of the village that keeps calling you up and say that I got a meth house down the street. You know, they got they're not sleeping at 3 o'clock. They're washing their car. They're playing their music. They're not going to sleep. That's the first indicator of a meth house, right? They just keep on going, and then you get all these nefarious cars that are coming in and out. You need to focus upon making good villagers as police officers. I need to focus upon making good clients that are law-abiding, that are crime fighters, that are superheroes, that are people that want to improve our community. And that's what this is all about. That's what you guys are doing. Jump forward to what you're not a cog in the wheel of justice. You want to be the Superman, you want to be the Deadpool, you want to be those, yeah, I like Deadpool. You want to be those guys that make a difference in your life and that have the family that when you go into one of the greatest honors that I have is to walk into Home Depot trying to be low key in my shorts and my torn shorts. By the way, I look like that. So you want to be that when people see you with that badge, that Guam Police Department badge, they thank you. And that is the greatest honor, and that is what makes this job worth doing, is when I go into a place like that, or the police station, or the gas stations, trying not to be noticed, and people come up to me and say, thank you for what you're doing. That is, it is something that salary, it's like a salary in itself. It's you can't even put a figure on it. And it's because the badge that you're wearing. I can tell you right now, I have a lot of respect for you because I see the good that Chief Ignacio Chargaloff and the whole command staff that you guys are dedicating your lives to. It's a reward. That's why my grandfather did what he did. You know, he didn't need to, and he went out because he wanted to be part of the community. He wanted to be respected and to show the respect by keeping us all safe. So I will conclude it at that. I appreciate and thank you, and Professor Chargaloff.
Comment. She talked about corrupt cops, right? And these trainees and all the other trainees that I've taught in this department, they know. Okay, they all know this. I mentioned I'll be the first one to put handcuffs on. We have a very robust command team. This command team, now I can honestly say, is as pure as you're gonna get it. You're not gonna have them have issues because you know what? Like we always say, we lead from the front. And like, Gerald just mentioned, Chief Ignacio is a leader that leads from the front and we follow right behind. So I can assure you, don't get me wrong, and I've told these guys, I said, we've got dirty cops. We might even have some dirty cops now. We're gonna find them. And I've spoken to officers in the areas that I oversee. I said, please don't be that dirty cop. Don't tarnish the badge that I earned and sweat like what the guys are doing and gals. So yeah, we take it to heart. At least I do. And let me tell you, I think the general has spoken to in my regular classes, and I've even told those guys that if you hear anything about a cop being dirty, call me. I will be the first one to put those handcuffs on.
And
I
also,
take my job seriously.
exactly, and also the idea that you guys deal with guns.
Yes.
And when you're dealing with millions of dollars in drug money and stuff like that,
Yeah.
you don't want the guy that's watching your back putting the gun in your back. So there's a reality that we don't necessarily see as my issue with my prosecutors. You've got to be part of the team. If you're not part of the team, then get out. I need loyal prosecutors because you guys need it. We need it as community. But you guys are dealing, when you have a bad cop, watch your backs, because that partner, that is the true sense of being an officer, having a partner. To have a partner, you need to trust them 100%, and a bad cop,
Everyone in
Get
here
you killed.
doesn't remember this. We had a lieutenant actually that was dealing drugs. And as soon as I found out about that, and I went over to the task force guys. I said, I want to know, because I want to be part of that. I want to make sure that I'm part of. I told him, I said, I'm a narcotics officer and spent almost half my career there. So I got into that. I remember that lieutenant. He already served his time. That was like 30 years ago. But he served his time and he's out. But and I've seen him, and I respect him because as a person. But he knows darn well, man. I even told him, I said, you know, right, that I was part of that sting, dude, that got your ass.
right?
There was no worries, Fred and all that, because he was my boss. He was a supervisor for me. I was only a sergeant at the time. I went over there and I said, hey, man. I said, I'll do what you guys need me to do. I'll be an asset. I said, just tell me what needs to be done. And so I played a small role. I didn't play a bigger role like, the actual sting operation, because he was actually bringing in drugs with a freaking dealer, man. So
Right.
I just got so pissed. That's why my voice is a little shaking, because I was so pissed at that. How could this guy, my boss, guy that's supposed to look out for me, dealing drugs? And I said, ain't gonna tolerate that. So yeah, that's just my take. I don't
Exactly.
wanna- I don't
And then
wanna-
we also have to be careful. We're not immune from that. So if officers start getting into that world and taking that substance, luckily you can pretty well tell the people on meth. They slowly deteriorate. They can't control it. But I mean, all that is antithetical to what you stand for. And believe in it, because I believe in it. I believe in you. I believe in the principles that our system is built upon: democracy, rule of law, that we are all equal, and that we all have to follow that law. You guys are the law enforcers. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Well,